hedge funds started shorting those stocks. Shorting just means betting on them to fail. A community on the website Reddit called Wall Street Bets, they reacted by starting to buy up the stock. They did it so much that GameStop started the day up 25%, 2,500%, 2,500% up from a year ago. Okay? That leads to stories like a line cook watching his $4,000 investment become $67,000. A pastor who made $1,700 in a week. Meanwhile, the move was a major blow to major hedge funds, some needing multi-billion-dollar infusions to stay afloat. We don't know how this ends, but we know for too long the hedge funds are the ones that get the big bailouts, right? Big banks get the big help. The little guy doesn't. And that's what this story feels like. So if you want to understand the power of the moment, you have to look at the political forces aligned on this one. AOC, Ted Cruz, Elizabeth Warren, and Donald Trump Jr. I don't even know why we include them, but they're all on the same side. Honestly, I don't know why I included him. The guy's not a politician. He just says inflammatory things to help his father and his own brand. Anyway, that power is fueled by anger, something both sides of our political divide want to harness these days, it seems. In this case, the anger is targeted at a system too long off limits to those without means. The little guy loses and the big guy gets richer. A reality as obvious as our huge and growing wealth gap, right? You all know the story of this country right now. We're waiting for somebody to somehow figure out a way to make it more equitable, more fair. We stand witness to a storm of people taking their shot, targeting the hedge funds they see as having the advantage. The rise of no-fee trading due to the popularity of online brokers like Robinwood provided access. In a way, it helped democratize investing because it let people bypass traditional commission fees. Groups like Wall Street Bets provided the numbers and the community to unite the effort. The outcry when companies like Robinhood and Ameritrade imposed restrictions today just shows the fury that exists behind what for far too many is still the foreign world of Wall Street. In the face of that fury, as well as a class action suit, Robinhood will now resume some limited buying of stocks like GameStop and AMC. The question is, why did they stop the trading? Let's dig into the decision with Robinhood CEO Vlad Tenev. Vlad, thank you for joining us.
Chris, thank you for having me. This is surreal for me. I've been watching your show a lot, especially through this past year.
Well, I appreciate it. Look, you know my audience. This is not an investment show. And I don't think it needs to be. I don't really care about your capital commitments, your liquidity, and what was going on the regulatory side. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that. But I want you to address the obvious. This looks like a move by an outfit called Robinhood, which is supposed to be taken from the rich and given to the poor, and doing exactly the opposite. That when the big guys, including one of your main investors in your company, started to lose, you shut down the game to starve the little guy. Fair criticism.
That's not what it is at all. And I know you started this segment. It really resonated with me because you described the story of Robinhood. Robinhood started 5 years ago by pioneering commission-free, no-account minimum mobile investing. And we've been the spokesperson of the individual investor. And our whole goal as an institution is to enable those customers, empower them, and give them access to the markets. Because for the longest time, markets have been only accessible to the wealthy. And so the entire industry adopted our business model in 2019. And in 2020, we added millions of new customers. The entire industry added millions of new customers who took advantage of the market rally and became investors for the very first time. So, we had to make a very difficult decision to protect our customers and our firm.
Why?
But we in no way
Why? Explain why you had to do it if it wasn't to protect the guys who had shorted the stocks, which are the big hedge funds. How are you helping the little guy investors?
Well, I know that there's rumors around that, we were directed by market makers or other market participants to do this.
So why'd you do it?
Robinwood, as a brokerage, has lots of financial requirements, SEC requirements. We have to put up money at clearinghouses. The amount of money that we have to put up depends on market volatility, and we're in a historic situation where there's a lot of activity and a lot of buying concentrated in a relatively small number of symbols that are going viral on social media. So we haven't really seen anything like this before, and to prudently manage the risk and the deposit requirements, we had to restrict buying in these 13 stocks. But customers that held them could sell throughout. Thousands of other securities and stocks on our platform were available to freely trade. And our number one priority, as you mentioned, is to make sure our platform is reliable, stable for our customers. We're serving our customers and giving them the tools.
That's exactly
and
what's
we're
your
doing
question.
everything in our power to turn it back on as soon as prudent.
But that's the thing, is that the trust is in question, because it seems like the only people who are getting hurt were the big shots. And that if they were benefiting from this, your small investors now believe that you wouldn't have shut down the game. And just one thing without getting in the weeds here. You don't control the listing venue for GameStop. Now, I used to work in finance, so I know this stuff, but the audience doesn't need to. The New York Stock Exchange does. So if anybody was going to control the listing and shut it down, it should have been them, but it wasn't, it was you. And the reason that they do it is very limited. They do it because they think there's evidence of fraud, or they think that there needs to be a material disclosure by the company that hasn't been made. And that's done to protect the investor. You check none of those boxes here, because you don't control the venue. You didn't know about any information that GameStop or any of these other stocks needed to put out. You don't have any reason to believe there's fraud that you've articulated. And you're certainly not protecting these people who've been living the dream of making money, especially at the expense of the big guys. So why should people believe you did this for the right reasons?
Well, we have no choice. We have to comply with all financial requirements.
The SEC hasn't said you had to do this.
Well, lots of brokers have to comply with these financial requirements and have issued restrictions on some of these names. And this is an industry-wide thing. You yourself mentioned that other brokers this week have imposed restrictions. And not speaking for other firms, but for Robinhood in particular, this isn't because there's deals happening with market makers we route to or market participants.
But then why do you allow people to keep selling but not buying? The reason that is so troubling to people is that they were making money buying the stock because they were against the short side. And so by enabling them to sell but not buy, it sounds like you were allowing the hedge funds, and again, one of them owns a piece of you, and they had a big short position, and that looks like a stinky conflict that you didn't come out straight on from the start. Address that.
Well, none of that had anything to do with our decision to do this. Again, this was just looking at regulatory requirements, financial requirements, and we 100% will always protect our customers. The entire business is operating to empower individual investors and has been since its founding, and that's what Robinhood is committed to continue to do. So we don't want to restrict buying these 13 stocks. We're doing the best we can to re-enable it as long as it's operationally and prudent from a deposit standpoint.
So for you, it's about how much money is in the mix and what you can cover yourself?
Well, it's about us complying with the financial and clearinghouse deposits and regulations.
Then you know what you need? I'll give you some free advice. You need somebody who sets those requirements to come out and say that this is why this happened, because otherwise it smells bad, especially for a place called Robinhood, to have Citadel Securities, your largest customer, investing $2.75 billion to bail out one of the biggest losers in the GameStop short. They both deny, you and Citadel say this wasn't concerted action or anything, but it looks terrible. So you need somebody to justify your decision. Do you think you can do that?
There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I'm not going to speak for what regulators or industry professionals
I saw you on another channel. They were saying, so is it a liquidity issue? So Robinhood didn't have the money to control the flow, and you said, no, it's not the issue. We don't have a liquidity issue. Well, if you don't have a liquidity issue, but you say you're stopping the trading because you couldn't meet certain capital requirements, how does that reconcile with itself?
Well, we feel pretty good about the situation, and we did this preemptively, right? We were looking at the deposit requirements, we were looking at the operational requirements. So we did this proactively, and we feel good about being able to re-enable these things. And we definitely want to make sure customers understand when we impose restrictions, when we lift them. Ultimately, brokers have to impose these types of restrictions because the capital requirements can change, and we're in unprecedented times, and the financial system operates in very technical ways with regard to settlement and money movement, and there's no way around that. It's just the reality of our business.
I hear what your rationale is, but again, now we're going to be watching this story because you have political forces I've never seen aligned before who want to make sure that the big guy is not finding a way to get over on the little guy. Because the country, I think, is just about had it with that. So you're caught in the middle, and we'll be watching, and I hope you're acting in good faith, and that the trading resumes and the market can settle itself. But Vlad Tenev, thank you for coming in and making the case for Robinhood.
Thank you very much, and absolutely, we want nothing more than to enable investing and access to as many individuals as possible. That's our mission, and it's in the name of the company.
Just got to make sure that something named Robinhood isn't rigging it for the sheriff of Nottingham. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're going to set it up where the little guy can win, they should be able to play fairly and see that happen. I'll stay on it, and you have this as a venue to discuss it as we move along. Good luck. The other side of the story is the individual investors who came together in places like Reddit, which is an amazing story in itself. The man who founded Wall Street Bets is here. His name is Jamie Rogozinski. A nice Irish name. He did step away from it last year, but he's here now. And I saw you, and I know you're heated up about this, Mr. Rogozinski. So first, Jamie, what was your response to what you heard from the head of Robinhood?
Well, thanks for having me. I just want to start by saying I hope to take it a little easier on me. I don't have as much experience as him. I'm glad that I got to hear his answer. I've been asked that question day in all day long, and I've been left but to speculate. To me, it sounds like the same conclusion you were kind of getting to, which is they having a liquidity issue. I don't know enough about their profile internally. My suspicions were that they were under pressure from regulators. That's the most logical step based on the fact that Robinhood caters to this very demographic that has made them so successful. It doesn't make sense for them to turn their back on their customers. So I'm glad that I got a logical explanation out of them.
Why is it logical? Because the investor side says, look, this is exactly what happens. We find a way to finally compete by basically crowdsourcing our own investment strategy to compete with people who have put more money to put into the market. And by the way, we're betting on us by trying to hold these stocks up. And yeah, we're making money, but we're going against these big guys who are just trying to take it. And now they stop the game so that they can figure out a way to not lose so badly. How are those people supposed to feel?
That's what I'm saying. I think they didn't really have a choice, and I buy into that. That's a logical thing. But these people have a right to be mad. I mean, these people are participants, and they deserve the same rights as all the big players. I think that part of the reason why this story has a feel-good component to it is because, the little guys are getting together, and they're actually being able to unite and be an opposing force to these institutions that have historically dominated this invite-only market. And so, they have a reason to be upset. The fact that now that they've finally been able to get a voice and get the spotlight, they get the rug pulled from under them. So I understand the anger on their behalf.
The only other thing is, I know you're not with it anymore, but do you have any concerns that you're inherently getting people into a game that is not that much unlike gambling? And that the odds may be even for everybody who goes in, but not really, because of block trades and the speed with which they can trade, and the idea of democratizing investing. Is that a little misleading because of the nature of the game?
There is a round of game. You're talking about the speed, and there's more technical component, the execution of these trades. Robinhood is not known as necessarily being the best one, but these particular the people that are coming into this type of trade, they don't care about those little things. They don't care if the other the people that are behind these orders are front running them. They don't care. If
I hear you, but what they care about is it being fair. And it's interesting. You gave them a place to come together, and they did something that was really interesting about power of the people, even against the power of the powerful. And I appreciate you for talking to us about it. Thank you for being with us to kind of give shape to this story, and we'll be watching. All right?
Thank you for having me.
Taking the opportunity.